Some voices on the radio belong to other drivers. The voice in this story belonged to someone who hadn't started driving yet. Tonight, one story. The first time the voice came through on the CB, I thought it was somebody messing around on a frequency they shouldn't have been on. The second time, it used my name. The third time, it told me to slow down before a curve I had driven 1,000 times. I slowed down. There was a doe in the road. I didn't hit her. That night, on the way home, the voice came through one last time and told me what year it was on the other end of the broadcast. I was driving in 2025. The voice was speaking from 2026. My name doesn't matter. Most of the people I want to protect are still alive, and I would rather keep it that way. I'm 31. I drive regional freight for a small carrier out of Springfield, Missouri. I run reefer, refrigerated freight. Most of my loads are frozen meat, dairy, and frozen entrees from a co-op in southwest Missouri to distribution centers in northern Arkansas, then back. It's a 4-day rotation. I leave Sunday night and I get home Wednesday afternoon. I sleep in my own bed Wednesday through Saturday. I live with my husband and our kid. My kid is 9. My husband works at a hardware store in Stratford. He used to make better money. Then last winter, the store cut his hours and we needed something to fill the hole. The night routes through the Ozarks paid more than the day routes. I took the night routes. I didn't tell my husband I was scared of them at first. I'm not scared of much, but the Ozarks at night are different from the Ozarks in the daytime. The roads twist and dip. The hollows hold fog. Cell service drops out for 30 miles at a stretch. You can drive an hour without seeing another set of headlights, and the only sound is the diesel and the tires and the wind moving through the pines. There are stretches of Highway 65 between Branson and Harrison where, if you turn off your headlights, the dark gets so heavy you cannot see your own hand. There are stretches where the road runs alongside Bull Shoals Lake and the water just holds the sky. There are stretches where the trees lean in close enough to brush the side of the trailer when the wind catches them right. I grew up in the Ozarks. I am not somebody who is supposed to be afraid of them. My grandparents had a farm in Stone County. My father drove a propane truck out of Mountain Grove for 31 years. The hills are part of my body the same way my own face is. But there is a difference between living in a place during the day and being alone in it at 3 a.m. with a refrigerated trailer full of frozen meat and a CB radio that mostly says nothing. I drive a 2018 Freightliner with a CB radio mounted in the dash. The CB is old technology. Most truckers don't bother with them anymore. But on the routes through the Ozarks, the CB still works better than a cell phone because it doesn't need a tower. The signal carries through the hollows on its own. Channel 19 is the standard one. I keep mine on low while I drive. Background noise mostly, and sometimes another driver checking in, sometimes a guy named Rocco who works out of Branson and likes to talk about fishing on the White River, sometimes nothing for hours. That's the part I want you to remember. Most nights, Channel 19 is nothing for hours. Sunday night. I leave the yard in Springfield around 8:30. By 9, I'm on Highway 65 South. By 10:30, I'm crossing into Arkansas. By midnight, I hit Mountain Home. By 1:30, I'm in Harrison, turning east on the loop. By 4 a.m., I'm at the depot in Walnut Ridge. I drop my trailer, grab 3 hours of sleep in the bunk, pick up a different trailer in the morning, and head back the long way. I've been doing this for almost 3 years. I know every curve, every hollow, every rest area, every gas station that takes my fleet card. Every overpass where deer like to gather right before sunrise. It's lonely, it's quiet. Most of the time, it's also boring. Boring is what I want in this job. Boring means I get home Wednesday afternoon and see my kid before bed. I wear a hooded sweatshirt under my work jacket. I keep a thermos of coffee in the cup holder. I keep a small spiral notebook on the dash where I write down mileage and fuel stops. I listen to talk radio sometimes, but mostly I drive in silence with the CB on low. I have a routine for the kid before I leave. Sunday afternoons before I go, I do his lunches for the week. 5 paper bags lined up on the kitchen counter. Sandwich fruit, cracker pack, juice box, note. The note changes every day. Some days I draw a picture. Some days I just write, love you, be good. My husband will not remember to write the notes. He will remember the lunches. He will not remember the notes. The notes are mine to do. I hug my kid hard before I leave. He is at the age where he is starting to think hugs from his mom in front of his dad are uncool. He still hugs me back. He still hugs me back hard. He says, be safe. I say I will. That is the script we have. That's how I drove for 3 years. That's the part I want to make clear before I tell you what happened next. I was not weird. I was not jumpy. I had not been sleep deprived. I was not on anything. I was a 31-year-old woman driving a refrigerated trailer through northern Arkansas at night, listening to almost nothing on a CB radio, going home to my husband and my kid every Wednesday. And that was my life until late September. It was a Sunday night, about a week after Labor Day. I was on Highway 65 going south, somewhere between Branson and Bull Shoals. I had my CB on low, like always. There was nothing on it. I had checked in with my dispatcher about an hour earlier. Greg, our night dispatcher, who I had been talking to for years. After that, the radio had been quiet. I was thinking about whether I had remembered to leave the gas card on the kitchen counter for my husband. The CB clicked. A click on a CB radio is a small thing. It's the sound somebody's mic makes when they push the button to talk. It's a soft, dry click. You hear it before any voice comes through. After 3 years on the road, it's a sound I notice without thinking about it. A woman's voice came through, calm, mid-range, no accent that I could place. Not Missouri, not Arkansas, not Texas. Clean, almost flat. She said one sentence. Slow down at the curve before mile marker. 47, there's a doe in the road. That was it. No call sign. No, to anyone listening, no, hey, watch out. No identifier at all, none of the usual CB chatter. I picked up my mic, I keyed it. I said, who's that? She didn't answer. I waited, static, nothing. Mile marker 47 was about 3 miles ahead. I let off the throttle. I'd been doing about 62. I dropped to 55, then to 50. The curve at 47 is one of the sharper ones on that stretch of 65. The road bends to the right, and there's a steep drop-off into a wooded hollow on the left. You can't see the road past the curve until you're already in it. I came around. My headlights hit the road, and the road was empty. I almost laughed. Then my high beams caught it. A doe was standing in the middle of my lane. Just standing there, ears up, eyes catching my headlights. I swerved a little to the left, corrected, and passed her at maybe 40 miles an hour. She didn't even move. I saw her in my mirrors. She just stood there in the middle of the road with her ears up, watching me drive past. If I'd been doing 62, like I had been a minute earlier, I would have hit her, hard. She would have come through the windshield. I picked up the mic. I keyed it. I said, hey, thanks for that. Doe was right where you said she'd be. Anybody got a copy? Static. Nothing. By the time I got to Mountain Home, I had 3 explanations. The first was that another driver had passed the doe coming the other way and warned me on the CB. There were no headlights visible at the time, but maybe a truck had passed several minutes earlier and was already over the next ridge. CB signals carry. It was possible. The second was that the woman was a dispatcher monitoring Channel 19. Some of the bigger fleets do that, especially in deer country. Why she didn't identify herself, I didn't know. Maybe she was new. Maybe she was tired. The third was that I had imagined it. I had been on the road for almost 2 hours. The Ozarks at night make you weird. Drivers hallucinate on long stretches all the time. Once outside Hollister, I thought I saw a man in a suit standing on the shoulder of the road. I blinked, and he was gone. Things like that happen. By the time I got home Wednesday afternoon, I had mostly stopped thinking about it. That weekend, I made spaghetti for my husband and my kid. We watched a movie about a dog. My kid fell asleep on my arm on the couch. I carried him to bed. Sunday night, I went back to work. 3 days later, around 11 p.m., I was south of Branson again on the same stretch of Highway 65. The radio clicked. The same woman's voice came through. Don't stop at the BP in Mountain Home tonight. Take the Phillips 66 on the south side instead. This time my hand was already on the mic. I keyed it. I said, "Who is this? What's your call sign?" A long pause. Several seconds of static. Then she said, "We don't have call signs anymore. Just take the Phillips 66. She clicked off. I drove the rest of the way to Mountain Home with my hand on the mic, waiting for her to come back. She didn't. I always stopped at the BP in Mountain Home. They had decent coffee, a clean bathroom, and a guy at the register who recognized me. I had been stopping there for 3 years. I drove up to the lot. The lights were on. There were 3 other trucks, parked at the back. Everything looked the way it always looked. I sat in my driver's seat for a minute with my hand on the door handle trying to decide. Then I pulled back out of the lot. I drove 4 more miles to the Phillips 66 on the south side. I went inside. I used the bathroom. I bought a coffee. I asked the guy at the register if he had heard anything that night. He said, "Like what?" I said, "Anything on the radio, any accidents, anything weird?" He shrugged. "Nope, slow night." I drove the rest of my route. I dropped my trailer. I slept 3 hours. I drove home. Wednesday afternoon, my husband told me he had seen something on the local news that morning. A guy had been robbed at gunpoint at the BP in Mountain Home around 11:30 p.m. Sunday night. The robber had pistol whipped the cashier for not having enough cash in the drawer. The cashier was in the hospital with a fractured skull, but he was going to be okay. 11:30 p.m. Sunday night. That was when I would have been there. I sat at the kitchen table while my husband told me, holding a mug of coffee, and I tried to decide whether to tell him. I didn't tell him, not yet. The next Sunday before I left for work, I bought a small handheld voice recorder at a thrift store, the kind that uses an SD card. $8. I tested it in my truck. It worked. I propped it on the dash next to my CB. I clicked it on. I drove south on 65. For the first 6 hours, the recorder caught nothing but engine noise, my own breathing, and one short message from Rocco about a closed lane near Buffalo. Routine. Then, around midnight, somewhere south of Branson, the click came. The woman's voice. Take County Road 19 instead of 65 from 1142 to 1218. There's going to be ice on the bridge over Little North Fork. Avoid it. It was September. The temperature was 46 degrees. There was no chance of ice. I keyed the mic anyway. I said, "Copy that." Then I said, "What's your name?" She paused. She said, "Same as yours." The hair on the back of my neck went up. I said my full first name into the mic, my middle name and last name. She repeated all three of them back to me, calmly, like she was confirming a delivery. Then she clicked off. I took County Road 19. About 15 miles in, I passed the bridge over Little North Fork. It was bone dry, no ice, no water, no reason to avoid it. But about a mile past the bridge, I saw flashing lights ahead. A state trooper had a stretch of road blocked off. I slowed down. He waved me through on the shoulder. I rolled down my window as I passed. I asked him what was going on. He said, "Tanker truck overturned about an hour ago. Driver's fine. Spilled gasoline on the road. We're waiting on cleanup." I asked him where. He said, "Couple of miles back on 65. The bridge over Little North Fork." I nodded. I rolled my window back up. I drove on. When I got to the truck stop in Harrison, I sat in my cab for 45 minutes with the recorder in my hand. I played back the message. The voice was on the recording. Clear. The woman's voice. Saying the words she had said. Saying my name. I played it back again. Then again. Then I sat in my cab and tried to figure out who would know my full name and broadcast it back to me on a CB radio in the middle of northern Arkansas, after telling me about an accident before it happened. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning on my way back through Springfield, I drove out of my way to a small CB shop on Kearney Street. It is run by an older man named Don. He has been selling and servicing CB equipment since the 70s. He used to sell to long-haul drivers when long-haul drivers all had CBs. Now he sells mostly to hobbyists. I brought him my CB. I asked him to test it. He pulled it out of my dash. He hooked it up to a bench tester behind his counter. He ran a few diagnostics. He keyed it. He listened to the squelch. He checked the antenna line. He checked the connection points. He said, "It's clean. There's nothing wrong with it. Why?" I told him I'd been getting transmissions from someone who knew personal information about me. I told him I wanted to know if there was any way someone could be targeting me specifically. He looked at me for a long moment. He said, "Honey, CB doesn't work that way. CB is open. Anyone in range can hear you and you can hear them. It's like shouting in a parking lot. It's not aimed. If somebody is talking to you and they know things about you, that's because they've been close enough to hear you talking to other people. They've been on the same channel as you. They've been listening." I asked him how far CB carried. He said, "Depends. Flat ground, line of sight, 10 miles easy. Up in the hills, like where you drive, it bounces. Could be 20, could be 3. Depends on the night, the weather, the moisture in the air." I asked him whether a signal could come from somewhere that wasn't supposed to be transmitting. He said, "What do you mean by that?" I tried to think of a way to ask him. I couldn't. I said, "Never mind. Thanks for checking it." He put the CB back in my dash. He didn't charge me. He told me to come back if I had any more trouble with it. He looked at me carefully when I left. That night, I asked Greg, the dispatcher, whether any other drivers had ever reported strange CB traffic on the route. He said no. He said in 22 years of dispatching, he had never had a driver complain about CB. He asked if I was doing okay. I told him I was fine. I changed the subject. I did not tell anyone else for a long time after that. 2 nights later, on the way back, the voice came through again. On Thursday afternoon, Your son Caleb is going to come home from school holding his ear. You are going to take him to the urgent care on Glenstone Avenue. They are going to tell you it's a double ear infection. The amoxicillin is going to work fine. You are not going to need the second round. When the doctor calls Friday afternoon to schedule it, tell her no. I sat there in my driver's seat, eyes on the road, both hands on the wheel. I had not told anyone on a CB about my kid. I had not told anyone on a CB his name. I had not told anyone on a CB that we had a doctor on Glenstone Avenue, because we don't have a doctor on Glenstone Avenue. We have a doctor on Battlefield Road. I keyed the mic. I said, we don't go to Glenstone. She said, you will. The one on Battlefield is going to be closed for renovation by Thursday. There's a sign on the door now. You haven't seen it yet? She clicked off. I drove home Wednesday afternoon. I parked the truck. I went inside. I hugged my kid. I asked my husband how the week had been. He told me everything was fine. Thursday afternoon at 3:15, the school called. Caleb was holding his ear and crying. They wanted me to come pick him up. I picked him up. I drove him to our pediatrician on Battlefield Road. The pediatrician's office was closed. There was a sign on the door, renovating July through October. Patients, please use our temporary location at 1740 South Glenstone Avenue. I drove him to Glenstone. They saw him. They diagnosed him with a double ear infection. They gave us amoxicillin. He took it for 10 days. He got better. The doctor called on Friday afternoon to schedule a second round in case the first didn't work. I told her no. Caleb is fine. His ears never bothered him again. That was the proof moment for me. After that, I stopped pretending the voice was something I could explain. Over the next few weeks, the voice came through more often. Sometimes once a night, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 nights in a row, then nothing for a week. The instructions got more specific. On October 12th, do not work the Sunday route. Call out sick. Tell Greg you have a fever. I called out. Greg was annoyed, but he covered it. I learned later that the driver who took my run that night clipped a deer outside Bull Shoals at 1 a.m. and bent the front axle. It was a freak accident. The driver was fine. The truck was in the shop for 10 days. When the woman in the burgundy Honda Civic passes you on Highway 65 around 1 a.m. on October 15th, let her go. Don't try to stay ahead of her. Don't engage. I let her pass. She blew past me at maybe 90 miles an hour. I learned later. Rocco told me on the CB that a state trooper picked her up about 5 miles past me. She had a gun in the car and was on her way to her ex-husband's house in Lead Hill. They got to the house before she did. They escorted the ex out before she got there. Nobody got hurt. On October 19, your supervisor, Greg, is going to offer you a longer route to Tulsa next week. It pays more. Refuse it. Take a sick day instead if you have to. Greg offered me Tulsa. I told him I had a family thing. He gave the route to a guy named Randy. Randy was robbed at a truck stop outside Tulsa on the Tuesday night. Knife at his throat in the parking lot. They took his wallet, his phone, and the keys to the truck. He got the truck back. He didn't sleep right for a month. On October 23rd, your husband is going to ask you whether he should buy a used snowblower from a guy on Facebook Marketplace in Nixa. The price is going to be too good. The snowblower is stolen. The seller is going to ask to be paid in cash. Tell him no. My husband asked me about the snowblower 3 days later. He showed me the listing. He said the price was incredible. He said the seller wanted cash. I told him no, absolutely not. Do not buy that snowblower. He was annoyed with me for 2 days. Then a week later, somebody on the local news anchored a story about a stolen equipment ring being run out of a storage unit in Nixa. Several pieces of yard equipment had been recovered. One of them was a Toro snowblower with the serial number filed off. On October 28th, on the return trip, you are going to want to pull over at the rest area south of Buffalo. Do not drive the extra 40 miles to the rest area in Bear Creek. Use that one instead. I drove the extra 40 miles. I never knew what was wrong with the rest area south of Buffalo. I have not stopped there since. I started writing the instructions in the small spiral notebook on my dash. Not the ones about my kid, just the road ones. Just to keep track. Just to have a record in case something ever happened to me. The notebook started filling up. Every page had a date and a sentence and a confirmation, written in 2 different colored pens because I confirmed the instructions later. By the end of October, the woman knew things she should not have known. She knew the name of my kid's teacher. She knew that my husband had bought me a winter coat and was hiding it in the back of his work truck. She knew that I had taken $20 out of the petty cash jar on the kitchen counter without telling him because I needed gas one morning. She knew that I had been thinking about asking Greg for a daytime route. She knew that my mother had called on the previous Saturday and that I had not answered because I had not wanted to talk to her about my brother. She knew that I had cried in the shower on a Tuesday afternoon for no reason that I could explain. Some of the things she knew I had not even said out loud. Some of them I had only thought about. That's the part that broke me first. It was the first week of November. I was driving south on 65 again, somewhere between Branson and Bull Shoals. The radio clicked. I didn't pick up the mic that time, I just let her talk. She said, "I want you to listen for a minute. I'm not going to tell you anything you have to do tonight. I just want you to know who I am." I drove. I waited. She said, "I'm 32 years old. I'm driving a 2019 Freightliner. I'm running a regional route for a different company. The carrier you work for closes in May of next year. Greg goes back to dispatch at his old company in Joplin. He'll hire you back when he gets there if you ask, but you won't ask, because by then you'll be running a different route." She said, "I'm your year ahead. I'm 1 year and 4 months in front of you on a road you haven't driven yet. The CB I'm on isn't supposed to do this. Nobody's CB is supposed to do this. I don't know why mine does. Maybe it's the road. Maybe it's the towers along 65. Maybe it's me. I don't know." She said, "I'm sober 93 days as of tonight. You don't have a drinking problem yet. You'll get one. It happens fast. It happens after a thing I'm trying to keep you from doing. I'm telling you now because I wish someone had told me." She said, "If you stop following the instructions, the broadcast will stop working. The road in front of you and the road behind me have to stay close together or the signal won't carry. Do you understand?" I keyed the mic. I said, "Are you me?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I am someone who can't sleep at night because of a thing you haven't done yet. Don't make me have to listen to her, the way she has to listen to me." I didn't know what to say. She clicked off. I drove the rest of that route in silence. Over the next few weeks, the woman told me other things about herself. Not all at once. In small pieces, like she was being careful with what she could afford to say. She told me she lived alone. She told me her apartment was in a building above a hardware store in a town she would not name. She told me there was a bus station 2 blocks from her front door, and she could hear the buses pulling out at 5 in the morning. She told me she had a cat. She told me the cat was old and sweet and slept on her chest at night. She told me she'd not seen her kid in almost 5 months. That one stopped me. I keyed the mic. I said, "Where is he?" She said, "He's with his dad. He's safe. He's okay. He just doesn't want to see me right now." She said, "I am working on it. He'll come around. He is 9 in your world. He is 10 in mine. 10 is a hard year for boys to be mad at their moms. But he loves me. And I love him, and we are going to be okay. I just need to make a different version of myself first." I did not say anything for a long time. Then she said, "You don't need to ask me what I did. I'm going to tell you on a different night when you're ready. For now, just know that what I did once, and I would undo it if I could. I cannot. I can only tell you the steps that lead to it so that you do not take them." She said, "Most of the steps are small. Most of them are decisions that look like nothing. The instructions I'm giving you about the road and the BP and the snowblower, those are warm-ups. The real ones, when they come, are not going to feel like horror. They are going to feel like normal life." She said, "Pay attention when the instructions stop being about strangers and start being about you." And that was the night I started writing every instruction down, including the ones about my own family. The hardest one came on the last Sunday in October, the night before Halloween. I was south of Mountain Home on a stretch of Highway 65 where the road runs alongside a creek for about 5 miles. There are no houses on that stretch. There are no exits, just trees, the creek, and the road. The radio clicked. The voice came through, calmer than usual, slower. "Listen carefully. At 11:47 p.m. tonight, on the curve at the south end of this stretch, you are going to see a child standing on the shoulder of the road. She is going to be wearing a yellow raincoat. She is going to be facing your direction. She is going to look like she's about 7 or 8 years old." The voice paused. "There is no child. Do not slow down. Do not stop. Do not roll down your window. Do not make eye contact. Do not look at her in the mirror after you pass." The voice paused again. "If you stop, you will not be able to listen to me a year from now. You will not be there to listen. Do you understand?" I keyed the mic. My hand was shaking. I said, "What is she?" The voice said, "I don't know. I tried to find out. I drove that stretch every night for 3 weeks looking for her. I never saw her again. The trooper at Bull Shoals told me there has never been a child reported missing on that stretch. There has never been an accident with a child. There is no record of a child in a yellow raincoat. She is not a memory. She is not a ghost. She is not anything I can name." The voice said, "She is what waits for drivers who stop. That's all I know." The voice said, "Please don't stop." She clicked off. I checked my watch. It was 11:18. I had 29 minutes. I thought about turning around. I thought about pulling off at the next exit. I thought about calling my husband. I thought about a lot of things. I didn't do any of them. I just kept driving. At 11:43, I came around the bend. The road dipped down toward the creek. The trees pressed in on both sides. My headlights cut a long yellow tunnel through the dark. At 11:45, I saw something ahead on the right shoulder. A small shape, white at the top, yellow below, standing very still. At 11:46, I was close enough to see her clearly. She was small, she was thin. She was wearing a yellow plastic raincoat with the hood up. The hood covered most of her face. I could see her chin and her mouth and the bottom of her nose. Her mouth was a little open. She looked like she was about to say something. She was facing my direction. She was not moving. I did not slow down. I did not stop. I did not roll down my window. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles ached. I kept my eyes on the road. I let her pass through the edge of my peripheral vision, and I did not turn my head. When I cleared the curve, I almost looked in the mirror. I almost did. I had my hand on the mirror adjustment knob, and I almost just glanced. I didn't. I just kept driving. I drove for almost 20 minutes before I let myself breathe again. My hands were wet on the wheel. My lower lip was bleeding from biting it. I had not realized I was biting it. When I finally pulled into the rest area outside Harrison, I sat in the cab for 45 minutes and I cried. I cried the way you cry after the worst thing has not quite happened. The shaking kind, the kind that doesn't have a word attached to it. The CB was silent. The voice did not come through that night. I tried to tell people. I told my husband first. I waited until our kid was asleep. I sat down at the kitchen table and I tried to find a way to start the sentence. I told him I had been hearing strange things on the CB voices that knew things. I told him about the doe. I told him about the BP in Mountain Home. I told him about Caleb's ear infection and the doctor on Glenstone Avenue. He listened. He did not interrupt. When I was done, he was very quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Babe, you're tired. You've been driving nights for 3 years. Maybe it's time to ask Greg about a day route. Maybe it's time to take a week off." He was kind about it. He was not dismissive. He just thought I was tired. He said, "If somebody is broadcasting weird things on your CB, that's a frequency thing. You can report it to the FCC. They have a form." I looked up the form that night. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open. The form asks you to describe the signal, the frequency, the content of the broadcast, the dates and times. Whether you have a recording. I closed the laptop. What was I going to write? A woman from 1 year in the future is broadcasting on Channel 19 in northern Arkansas and is using my full name and is telling me how to keep my son out of an urgent care that hasn't happened yet. I didn't fill out the form. I told Rocco on the CB 2 weeks later. Vague? I asked him if he had ever heard anyone broadcast on 19 who shouldn't have been there. Rocco was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, "You remember Tom Hardesty? Drove from Mid-South, quit 2 summers ago." I said, "No, I didn't remember him." Rocco said, "Tom told me one time he heard a man on 19 outside Bull Shoals who told him not to cross the bridge at Calico Rock that night. Said the bridge was going to collapse. Tom didn't cross. Bridge didn't collapse. Tom quit driving the next month. Said he didn't want to know what would have happened if he had crossed." I asked Rocco if he had ever heard anyone like that. He said, "Once. Long time ago, not about me, about my brother." He didn't say anything else about it. He said, "The radio gets weird out there. Don't listen to it if it bothers you. Keep it off. Do your job. Go home." I tried keeping it off after that. I drove 3 nights with the CB off completely. The voice still came through. I heard her once when the CB was off and the volume was 0. The static came up through the truck speakers from the dashboard radio on a station that should have been playing classic country, and her voice said one sentence, "Turn it back on. I can talk longer when it's on." I turned it back on. I tried one other thing. Around Christmas, I drove the route in a different truck. Greg had a backup Freightliner in the yard, for when the regular one was in for service. It had a different CB. Different antenna, different unit number. I asked him if I could take it out for a Sunday run. He said, sure. I drove the same route. I waited. The voice came through about 90 minutes south of Springfield. Same calm, mid-range voice. Same lack of accent. She said, you're in the backup truck. Don't bother. The radio doesn't matter. It's the road. It was always the road. That was the last time I tried. That was last winter. I have been driving the same routes ever since. The voice still comes through on and off. Some weeks it's quiet. Some weeks I get an instruction every night. I follow the instructions. I'm not pretending. I have stopped pretending. I have a notebook now, not a fancy one. Just a small spiral notebook. It lives in my dashboard. I write down every instruction and the date and the result. I am up to almost 200 pages. Some of the instructions are small. Don't pull into the rest area outside Mountain Home tonight. Use the one near Harrison instead. Skip the truck stop on Highway 62 this Tuesday. Eat at the Walmart deli instead. Don't answer the phone when your sister calls Sunday afternoon. Call her back Monday. Some of them are bigger. Don't take the load to Tulsa on the 3rd week of January. Tell Greg you have a doctor's appointment. On February 9th, your husband is going to ask if he can borrow your truck to help his brother move. Tell him no. Make him take his own. I follow them. All of them. I haven't seen the child in the yellow raincoat again. Last week, the voice told me something I have been thinking about for 7 days. She said, I'm running out of things to tell you. I'm catching up to my own past. I said, what does that mean? She said, there's a date coming up where the things I want to warn you about start being things I haven't done yet myself. I can't warn you about something I haven't lived through. The instructions are going to slow down. They're going to stop eventually. I said, when? She said, March 14th, 2027. That's the last date I have on my side. After that, you and I are in the same place. She said, there is one more thing. I want you to know it now, while there's still time. I waited. She said, on a Tuesday night, next October, you are going to be driving south on 65 in the same stretch where you saw the child. You are going to have your CB on low. There is going to be a click. A woman's voice is going to come through. She is going to ask you who you are. She is going to be a year behind you. She said, when she does, do not lie to her. Do not pretend to be a dispatcher. Do not pretend to be another driver. Tell her the truth. Tell her your name. Tell her about the doe. Tell her about the child. Tell her every instruction I have told you. She said, don't make her go through this alone. She is going to need someone to believe her. She clicked off. I sat with the mic in my hand for a long time. I want to tell you something honest. I have not stopped driving the night routes. I could. My husband has asked me to. Greg has asked me to. The money is not as good as it used to be, and we are starting to be okay again. But I am one of 2 people in the world who can hear this woman. And in a year, I am going to be the only one of 2 people in the world who can hear another woman, a year behind me, who is going to need someone to believe her. I have decided I am going to do it. I have not decided everything yet. I have not decided whether I am going to tell her what to do about the child in the yellow raincoat. I have not decided whether I am going to warn her about my husband's accident next April, or whether the warning itself is what causes it. I have not decided whether I am going to tell her about the things I have done that I am not proud of. The things the voice ahead of me told me to avoid. The things she did that I did not. Because someone was kind enough to warn me. I do not know if I am kind the way she is kind. I do not know if I will sound like her on the CB or if I will sound like myself. There are things I have noticed lately that I did not used to notice. I have noticed that my voice has gotten a little calmer, a little flatter. I do not raise it the way I used to. When my kid spills something, I no longer feel my chest jump. I just clean it up. I have noticed that I have started saying things to people the way she says things to me. Short sentences, specific information, no call signs, no filler. I caught myself doing it with the lady at the post office last week. She asked if I needed anything else. I said, no, that's all. And the way I said it sounded like the voice on the CB. The lady at the post office looked at me a little funny. I have noticed that I have started thinking ahead in a way I did not used to. Not planning, predicting. On Tuesday, I will need gas. On Friday, I will need to go to the bank. On Saturday, Caleb will want to go to a friend's house and his dad will say no, and I will say yes, and we will agree on a time of 7. The future presents itself in clean little sentences in my head, and most of the time the sentences turn out to be right. I have noticed that I have not had a drink in 11 months. The voice told me in November that I would start drinking around Christmas if I did not pay attention. She told me that the first one would be a glass of wine on a hard Wednesday after the kid was in bed. She told me that within 4 months it would be every night, and I would not remember it as a turning point, because turning points never feel that way at the time. I had been planning to buy a bottle of wine that Wednesday. I had it on a list in my phone. I deleted it from the list. I have not had wine since. I do not know if that is the thing she did. I do not know if that is the thing she is trying to keep me from doing. I am afraid to ask her, in case the question itself is one of the steps that lead to it. So I just keep going. I drive the night routes. I follow the instructions. I write them down in my notebook. I get home Wednesday afternoon. I hug my kid hard. I put a note in his lunch every day. I am slowly and on purpose becoming someone whose voice sounds like the voice on the radio. I'm not sure how I feel about that. What I do know is this. A year from now on a Tuesday night, somewhere south of Branson, a woman who is exactly 1 year behind me is going to be driving a refrigerated trailer through northern Arkansas. She is going to have her CB on low. The road is going to be quiet. There is going to be a click. I am going to open my mouth. I do not know yet what I am going to say. I am afraid. I already know what I am going to say. If you have a story that still bothers you, send it to Crypt Whisper. Until then, keep your headlights low. Watch the shoulder of the road and listen carefully to anyone on the radio who knows your name.